J.W. Millam, kidnapped Emmett from the home of his uncle, Mose Wright. Emmett's cousins witnessed the kidnapping. Emmett Till was then brutally beaten by Roy Bryant and several other members of the white community. He was taken to the edge of the Tallahatchie River, shot in the head, tied to a 75-pound metal fan that weighed his body down, and then dropped to the bottom of the water. 3 days later, his body was...
What?
Hi, I'm Clint Smith, and this is Crash Course Black American History. The 1955 murder of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old boy visiting his family in Money, Mississippi, was one of the most important catalysts of the civil rights movement. A heads up that this episode is going to include some violent descriptions and images, but we think it's important to do so that you can more fully understand what prompted so many Black Americans to mobilize and risk their lives in the pursuit of civil rights. These descriptions of violence also demonstrate how the threat of being subjected to domestic white supremacist terror hung over Black people in the South like a cloud that just wouldn't go away. Let's learn more about what happened to Emmett Till and start the show. In August of 1955, Emmett, who lived in Chicago, was visiting his uncle and cousins in Money, Mississippi. Emmett and a group of teenagers went shopping at a local store called Bryant's Grocery and Meat Market. This store, owned by Roy and Carolyn Bryant, sold items to mostly Black sharecroppers and their families. Some kids who were outside of the store later stated that they heard Emmett whistle at Carolyn. Later, Carolyn Bryant accused Emmett of making a sexual remark toward her and of grabbing her. And as we'll get to soon, this was a lie. A few days later, in the middle of the night, on August 28th, Roy Bryant, Carolyn's husband, and his half-brother, J.W. Millam, kidnapped Emmett from the home of his uncle, Mose Wright. Emmett's cousins witnessed the kidnapping. Emmett Till...
Wait. What do you mean, kidnap? Kidnap? Wait, this is... in 1955. So obviously he's visiting. So he doesn't actually live there. But regardless, he's a kid. I didn't get how old he is there. He's a kid. Mate, when we were kids, everyone does stupid stuff. I'm sure I'd have done something stupid like that when I was younger. But as an adult, you should know they're kids. And the fact that they sell to Black croppers. So like you're used to Black people. And you know this is a kid. And they're going to kid. Okay.
Brother, J.W. Millam, kidnapped Emmett from the home of his uncle, Mose Wright. Emmett's cousins witnessed the kidnapping. Emmett Till was then brutally beaten by Roy Bryant and several other members of the white community. He was taken to the edge of the Tallahatchie River, shot in the head, tied to a 75-pound metal fan that weighed his body down, and then dropped to the bottom of the water. 3 days later, his body was...
What? What is wrong with you? What? Like, I knew something bad happened. Because everyone talks about Emmett. I never knew it was like this. What do you mean? You bet him up. And you shot him in the head. What? Like, what's the crime that he did? He whistled. What? I know some of you guys already saw this and you already know exactly what happened. Bear in mind, again, some of you guys know I live in the UK. I don't get to see all these stories. I don't grow up learning about these stories. It's only from movies that I hear little things here and there. That's when I decided to, make this channel and start checking all this out. What the I'm just reading that because it's a live stream in case everyone's watching it back right now. Eddie there wasn't as happened. What? He was black, he wasn't looked at as human. Shadow said, that's the fear we live, even to today. Would you feel like that kind of stuff would happen today? I don't think that. I feel like there's so much technology that I feel like back then, people felt like they could get away with all this kind of stuff because of, of how black people were seen and there was no cameras here and there. Today, people think twice. They might have that feeling of hatred. They might hate you, but they feel like they will pretend to like you because they don't want to get in trouble. And this is not everywhere. This is, this is not everyone. This is just some places and some people. This is that's mad. Wow.
Dropped to the bottom of the water. 3 days later, his body was pulled from the water. He was so badly beaten and decomposed that his family could only identify him by the ring on his finger. Following the murder, Emmett Till's body was shipped back to his family in Chicago. His mother, Mamie Till, while emotionally distraught, made a decision that would reverberate throughout history. She decided that her son should have an open casket funeral. As she put it, let the people see what they did to my boy. Emmett's body was on display for 5 days at Robert's Temple Church of God. Tens of thousands of people came to pay their respects and to see in person the evidence of the violence inflicted on this child. But what made the name Emmett Till iconic was a powerful and devastating photograph that was taken by David Jackson, which captured Mamie Till gazing down at her son's ravaged and deformed body. The image is haunting, and what these men had done to Emmett's face was horrifying. The photo,
I don't have any kids yet, but I can't even imagine as a parent knowing that your kid was vulnerable and went through all this. Like, I don't want to threaten anyone, but if anyone, like the only person that's close to me, to a kid, is my niece. And I love that girl so much. And I'll protect her. Like I'd rather you do something bad to me than anything bad happen to the amazing, lovely girl. So, what? This is a kid. What did they say his age? I'm guessing it's between, I think, did they say like 13, 14? This is a kid. Do you know how messed up you have to be? How the hatred in you for your wife to tell you, okay, someone whistled at me, and then you go to their house, you picked up the kid, middle of the night. Do you know, you must feel like you're God. What is wrong with... I don't know why I thought you watched this one already. I've heard stories, but I never really dived into it. So I've heard stories about this. But again, because because some of you guys in America, you guys have family members that grew up that would have told you stories, different stories about people like Malcolm X and other prominent figures. But over here in the UK, we don't. Fuck. Sorry. I'm sorry for cussing.
Along with others, were published in Jet magazine, and the images of Till's deformed face, alongside images of him before.
That's the... That's... Oh, God. That's scary, but I feel like the world had to see it. Because I feel like these are stories that you hear about, but you don't see pictures. So you feel like, oh, it's only a fairy tale. It's not real. But once you see pictures, it makes it real. Yes, this happened. His mom was so strong.
Before his death, smiling and looking like the child that he was, forced people to confront the terror that Black people in the South had been subjected to for a century. Mamie Till would say Quote, I believe that the whole United States is mourning with me. And if the death of my son can mean something to the other unfortunate people all over the world, then for him to have died a hero would mean more to me than for him just to have died. This seems like an important moment to acknowledge why Black-led media outlets, like Jet Magazine and the Chicago Defender, both of which were based out of Chicago, are so important to telling and understanding the story of Black life in this country. These outlets told the sorts of stories that other outlets weren't always willing to. And during the Civil Rights Movement, they would play an enormous role in sharing the news about marches and covering the violence that protesters experienced. Today, the original Jet magazine, with published photos of Emmett Till, can now be found in the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. But back to the murder itself.
Wait, where's that?
Of African American history. Till can now be found in the Smithsonian.
So there's actually a museum. Oh my God, I think someone said that in the chat earlier. I have to check that out. There's so many places I have to go to in America. I never knew that existed. I never knew that. So Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. I would love to go there.
Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture.
Oh,
but
someone just said to me in the chat, Pontella said he was 14 years old. He was only 14 years old. What? 14? Imagine 14. I'm 31 years old right now. I can't even picture going through that. Imagine as a kid being kidnapped in the middle of the night, taken away from your family by these hooligans, by these devil, by these, I don't know what to call them. And then going through all that, 14 years old.
Back to the murder itself. So in early September, the governor of Mississippi, Hugh White, ordered officials to prosecute Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam in the case. Now, let's pause here. In previous episodes, we've learned about important legal victories for Black Americans at the federal level. But the state and local courts were often a different story. To put it mildly, this court case was a sham. But unfortunately, it was not atypical. Rarely were lynchings and brutal murders like this actually prosecuted with real justice. And people knew that. White people knew that throughout the South, they could kill a Black person and get away with it, which is how so many thousands of Black people came to be lynched in the century following the Civil War. And this terror...
What? Sorry, but you guys know how scary this is to me right now. What do you mean? So people just go around committing all these outrageous crimes and knowing they're gonna get away with it.
Was intentional. As Sherilyn Ifill writes in her book, On the Courthouse Lawn, Confronting the Legacy of Lynching in the 21st Century, quote, more than the poll tax, the grandfather clause, and Jim Crow segregation.
Once I finish the video, then we're gonna talk about this on the chat. I just want to finish the video. I don't want to pause it. I want to listen properly.
Lynching and the threat of lynching helped regulate and restrict all aspects of Black advancement, independence, and citizenship. On September 19th, 1955, J.W. Millam and Roy Bryant were tried in Sumner, Mississippi. An all-white jury was selected, and no Black jurors were even considered.
What?
In the trial, plenty of testimony and evidence showed that Millam and Bryant did kill Emmett Till. Even Emmett's uncle testified that he saw him kidnapped and pointed out who did it. But it didn't matter. And Emmett's uncle was even run out of town for telling the truth. The jury deliberated, and after 1 hour and 7 minutes, they ruled that Millam and Bryant weren't guilty. The Black community in Mississippi and across the country was devastated by this outcome. But
what do you mean? You kidnap someone middle of the night and you get away and you You kidnapped them, you beat them. That wasn't even beat. That's you torture them and you kill them. And you go. Imagine that must be a terrible time to be like, oh my god.
They weren't surprised. And if the not guilty verdict wasn't enough on its own, in January 1956, Brian and Millum admitted to committing the murder. Like, they just said it. Directly. With no equivocation. They did this because they were protected by double jeopardy. The idea that one cannot be tried for the same crime twice. And since they were already found not guilty in a previous trial, they could not be prosecuted by the legal system. All of this happened after Brown v. Board of Education, which has led many scholars to say that this event was an example of the hostility that many white people in the South had toward that ruling and toward the emerging civil rights movement. After the trial, many other publications around the world picked up the story as well. These articles explicitly addressed the hypocrisy of American ideas of justice, independence, and freedom. Part of what I think about when I think about the murder of Emmett Till is how recent this history is. A few years ago, I was walking through the National Museum of African American History and Culture with my grandparents, and in the museum is an exhibit that holds the casket that Emmett Till was originally buried in. I was pushing my grandfather, a man born in 1930 Jim Crow, Mississippi, in a wheelchair as we entered the room. We approached Emmett's casket, its bronze hue radiating under the museum lights. It sat open, exposing us to a photograph of what Emmett's mother, who, remember, insisted on an open casket funeral, had chosen to show. What white supremacy had done to her son. I had seen the images of it before and did not need to listen to anything other than the soft buzzing light above us to know of Mamie Till's unceasing sobs. My grandfather looked at the casket, his eyes moving unhurriedly across its frame, and said, "He was killed in the next town over from where your grandmother and I lived.
Wow.
Only a few miles away." As you know, I think about the history of racism in this country all the time. I think about how quickly we are to espouse notions of progress without accounting for its uncertain and serpentine path. I think of how decades of racial violence shape everything we see. But sometimes I can forget its impact on those right next to me. I sometimes forget that but for the arbitrary nature of circumstance, what happened to Emmett Till could have happened to my grandfather. Emmett Till was born in 1941. If he were alive today, as of the recording of this video, he would be 80 years old.
See, that's the craziest part. This didn't happen like in the 1800s, 70s. This happened in 1955. 1955. 80 years ago. I feel like the more I do my research, the more I understand why people are furious. Because I remember the beginning of me reacting to American content. I see some comments, people like, "Eddie, you don't understand." I'm like, "What do you mean I don't understand?" And I get where you're coming from. I would never fully understand. Because for you to be born in a country where not even 80 years ago, 55 years ago, 60 years ago, 65 years ago, something like this happened. What that does to you mentally. And imagine you're like his grandkids. No, sorry. Imagine it was your uncle. Just knowing that's what happened to your uncle or to your great uncle, your aunt. That must be just I'm a positive person and I try to, look at the positive aspect of life. But I feel like sometimes we need to teach the next generation stuff like this so it doesn't happen again. they need to know, look, this has happened in the past, and we cannot allow anything close remotely to it happen again. Bruv.
This is important to understand that he could have very easily still been alive today, going to the grocery store, picking up his mail from the post office, waving hello to his neighbors, or going to his grandchildren's soccer games. The possibilities of growing old were stolen from him, as they've been stolen from the thousands of black people lynched across the 20th century. Sometimes we tell ourselves that the most nefarious displays of racial violence happened a long time ago, when they were in fact not so long ago at all. These images and videos that appall our 21st century sensibilities are filled with people who are still among us today. I think often of Ruth Bonner, the woman who rang the bell to signal the opening of the National Museum of African American History and Culture in 2016, and how she was the daughter of a man born into slavery.
Wow.
Not the granddaughter, not the great-granddaughter.
Wow.
She was the daughter of someone born into slavery. None of this was that long ago. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Crash Course.
I love that channel. That channel is absolutely brilliant. Let's talk about this now. So I just finished watching that. Let's have a quick chat. I don't even know where to start. 1 second. I'm gonna look through the comments now. Picnic. Wait, who's gonna tell him about picnic? What's picnics? What's that? The only picnic I know is, having a picnic. That's how it was. Nobody talks about James Byrd. It was torn apart in Jasper, Texas, 90s. Track behind. What? Who is James Byrd? I've never heard. He was 2 years older than my mom. See, again, mentally, I was telling myself that this happened like 100 years ago, because I just couldn't believe this happened. This is someone that could have been 80 today. It just doesn't feel right. And it's so strange because the life that I live right now, I grew up in Ireland, and the love and support I've received from people that do not look like me has been wonderful. And then when I see this, it just makes your brain I don't know that feeling, because the way I've been brought up is that, be nice to people and they'll be nice to you back. And I've shared my stories so many times. I've never had not that maybe there's been some ignorance, but I've never been in a situation where I'm like, this person is being racist towards me. I'm like, never. It's been loads of ignorance. You guys have to realize I was the only black kid in my school for like 2-3 years growing up, and they never made me feel like I was, this stranger. I was welcome with open arms. That's the way I was brought up, and I can only imagine what you guys feel when some of you guys, your grandparents, your uncles, your aunties, they've told you stories. That stays with you. You can't have a normal childhood. Like you'd always think, like, if someone is being nice to you, you start thinking, are they actually being nice to me, or could they be a backstabber? Because you've heard stories. Let's look at the comments. Zara said, yeah, I remember my family talk about that when I was a kid. Eddie, the more you know, the more educated you are. Yeah, that's it. I'm just learning. I just want to learn. A young black college kid was just hung in a tree on a college campus. I heard about that. Also, black LSU was framed by the customer. Wow. The generational trauma we have is a significant gap. So you never have to think about it. The lady Caroline who lied on Emmett. Wait, she was alive until 2023. So she only just died. And nothing, it's the fact that nothing happened to her. Nothing. So she never went to jail. Nothing ever happened to her. She was able to lie and do all that, and nothing happened to her. That's crazy. No disrespect to any other culture, but the reason black people in America are so resilient is because of what we've been through and are still going through. We lived and are still living some of the stories. Fact. Yeah. I'm not gonna pretend and be like, because I don't go through that. I don't. I'm not gonna lie and pretend to you guys. I do know. Like when I step out of my house, I feel like maybe it's because it's my way of thinking as well. So even if someone is being racist towards me, I just always have that view of of people being nice. That's just the environment I was brought up in. Yeah, for me, for most black people in the UK, it's good. Like I had a great childhood. Like everything has been lovely. Again, some of you guys know I explore Scotland. Like sometimes I'm in the middle of nowhere, and when I'm stuck, people that have helped me are old white people. They see me and they're smiling and they're so happy to help. I've been lost so many times, and when I look left and I look right, they're helping me. And then when I see stories like this, God. She lived a long life, something she denied. I feel like the fact that, what do you guys think of the fact that they had an open casket? I think at first I was like, why? But now it was a great decision, because the fact that everyone was able to see that, I feel like that made the story become bigger, because everyone will like, it's a lie. But once you see the picture, you're like, what? That's a kid, a 14-year-old kid. We're 20 plus generations in, and a lot of those generations were nightmares. Wow. Eddie, true story. I experienced racism when in high school because I got a dark tan and my heritage showed. I don't know if the UK you'll get the talk, but I remember getting, I remember actually, when you said get a talk, I remember my dad telling me once, because obviously we're immigrants, innit? I remember my dad telling me once, before, I think he was going to work, it was early morning, and it was like, be careful. I think I was about 16, 17, and this was when I started, maybe it could tell that I'm very like, again, because I just assume everyone, like if I get in trouble, they're gonna treat me like everyone else. That's just my way of thinking. I am naive. I am very, very naive in a way back then. Maybe I'm still naive, who knows? And he said to me, look, if you do something wrong, if someone does something wrong, they might get away with it. But you have to remember, you're different. And that kind of stayed with me for a long time. And I've always stayed out of trouble. I never got in trouble with the police. So when I see the police, I'm always, I'm not afraid to talk to the police. Things like that.